Hello and welcome to Alive After Reading. I'm your host, and I've been your host, Tim Niederreiter. Welcome back to welcome to for the first time to the podcast as well. My guest for this episode, Mickey Mikkelson.
Hi, Tim. How are you?
Hi, Mickey. It's great to talk to you at last, and I'm doing pretty well this day. I should say I don't want to date this podcast, but we are recording toward the end of in the end of the first quarter. Or beginning of the second quarter, 2025. I'm great at this. I know time. I can handle time. Anyway, the thing is, so I want to get this out there right away. This is, and as the title probably suggests, the final episode of Alive After Reading. I know it's been and that's why I had Mickey on as a guest, because he's the guy who suggested I even start this show. So I thought it was only appropriate we go back to the prologue to figure out what's going on next and kind of get the vibe here. So, Mickey, tell the listeners what exactly is it that you do, and how did we get in touch with each other? I guess if you remember, I can help you out if you don't.
So, first and foremost, I want to say thank you for the years of support you've given me and my team. You've probably done over 100 interviews with Creative Edge overall, so I want to say thank you for that. As to how we met, you'll have to remind me. But what I do is my focus is on traditional media for both traditional and indie creatives, not just authors, but musicians, artists, what have you. And we're focusing on securing radio, TV, podcasts like yourself, book reviews, magazine coverages, newspaper coverages, library events, book events, anything to do with the traditional media or book marketing event status. That's what we do, and we've been doing it for over 10 years.
Yeah, and your clients have been a joy. I remember the very first episode of this podcast I did was with one of your clients at the time, Con Lavery, or Lavery. I don't know how to say that last name of his.
Con, yeah, he's an Edmonton.
Yeah, but he was a great guest. I had him on one other time too. So after over 300 episodes of this podcast, I lose track of all the people I've had on. It's been a crazy experience. And I mean, admittedly, for the last few years, it's been more spotty as far as my posting, right? Because especially I took a big hiatus when I was working at UPS because the scheduling was just a nightmare around that job. And now that I'm looking at wrapping up my first job after UPS, where I've been a tutor, a reading tutor at a school for just 1 year. But I'm looking at moving on to more freelance work and stuff like that, and frankly more writing time, because both those jobs I've had have been really demanding as far as my time. And I honestly I've also kind of solidified, I think, who I want to be as a writer, which is really important to me, which is one of the reasons I wanted to move on from kind of the survey podcast of, let's just talk to whoever wants to come on and whoever is able to come on. And any kind of creative person is good and appropriate for this show, right? And that's fine. I mean, I love that. And who knows, maybe I'll be more flexible than I think I'll be on the new show, which stay tuned for that. But but I feel like at a certain point, you can only, I mean, I bet this is true for my guests, my audience, the ones that have stuck with me, is that you've heard it all before to some extent, right? I mean, there's a lot of, at least when I ask people what their background is as a writer, it's a combination of the same sort of stuff. Not to say people aren't unique, but you mix and match all this stuff. It makes very interesting people. But then it's like, how many times am I going to ask people these questions, and talk about the same sort of thing? Because writing craft is not the same. It doesn't mean what it used to mean to me, I guess, is the main thing.
No,
maybe that's what I realized. Yeah,
I get that. Because
I mean, yeah, I may have been doing this podcast for at least 7 or 8 years, starting in 2018 at the latest.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's been a while, but I've been writing for over 20 years, right? I wrote my first novel when I was very young. This is 14 or 15, and so it's been over 20 years since I wrote my first book. And most years I've written more than one book since then. So it's like there's a lot of books that I need to get done, as I only published about half of those.
Right. No, but the show's been fantastic. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, I went on a ramble there.
No, that's okay.
This is the real threat of not having a plan when you start the show.
Not at all. It's all
But
good.
again, I think, and a lot of those books, though, I want to say, a lot of my books were surveys too. It was like, I'm going to see if I like this thing or this genre or this thing, and this type of character. And now I'm thinking I'm almost ready to settle down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can see this, Mickey. My beard has turned gray doing this podcast. No, I'm just kidding. No, I've just going gray early. It's fine. But
No.
uh, the I've matured. I feel like my tastes have matured, and I feel like my writing skills in a way have matured because I mean, when I first published my first novel in 2016, it got panned pretty bad by the people who did read it. I mean, it wasn't doing great. And I mean, I know why I did. It made I figured things out. And I've gone back, and everything I've written has been an experiment, right? So, but now I think I'm ready to just make stuff that I like because now I know what I like, and that's been a huge journey for me.
Well, it's no different than, and I mean, we can segue in, Tim, but it's no different than any of my clients. They have to be sure of their branding and know what they want to do in order to have success, right? So,
right,
yeah.
No, definitely. That's a really incisive way of putting it because when I wasn't confident in a book, I've launched 20 books or something, like novels and novellas and things, and when I launch a book and I'm not confident that it's good or that I know who it's for, then it's a disaster. It'll just flop. It'll make no headway.
Right.
And I am not seeing a ton of success, but the books that have had success, any kind of success for me, are always the ones I was confident were good, right? And I was confident that I liked what they were,
Confidence
and I wanted them. They were what I wanted. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So as for the podcast sphere, I mean, I'm a huge podcast fan as well. I started listening to podcasts about the same time I started writing books. So I was listening to I Should Be Writing, and which one of our last episodes was with Murray Lafferty. Unfortunately, that one was failed. I failed to record effectively. There's also a story of my early show. Messing up the recordings is also part of being a podcaster. So,
absolutely,
one of those infamous lost episodes where I did record with one of my podcasting heroes, and that was a disaster, of course. But well, it was fun for me. Just no one else gets to hear it.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. And there are a lot of other ones, a lot of other guests I've really loved over the years. I mean, tons of them, actually. Many of them are your client, or were your clients at the time, right? Because
you have probably interviewed over 100 individuals I've sent you in the last 8 years.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, no, doing a weekly podcast is a lot of work, right? I mean, it's more work than it seems because it's not that much work for me, right? I mean, my production is streamlined. At least at this point, I can record and publish stuff, willy-nilly if I want to. It's just a matter of how much time do I have to scheduling, and that's one of the reasons I really do appreciate what you've done, Mickey, for me, is because scheduling is the biggest annoyance to me when it comes to podcasting. Wow. So you took a good chunk of that weight off my shoulders, right? At least 2 or 3 guests a month sometimes.
I am happy to help, my friend.
No, it's teamwork, right? It's good teamwork. And I've never been a teamwork guy, really, in my head anyway. But no, this is how I like to work as a team, right? Like we each have our separate jobs, and we can even go 6 or 7 years without ever talking to each other, and still do just fine. Even though I'm glad I'm talking to you now, obviously. So
yeah, this is like the first time I met you. It's great.
Yeah, I guess I got to ask you some questions because technically you're the guest. Even though I mostly had you on because I need somebody to talk to for these shows, or I just
it's all good. Bring it on.
Okay, so I was going to say, how'd you get into the publicity side of things? Working with creative people and stuff. Obviously, because it always, as someone who wants to be the focus of attention, as I am.
Yeah.
The people behind the people, right? The people behind the stars really do interest me. Because it's just a different attitude, right, about what you want to do with your career, right?
So,
or is it? Yeah, go on. Yeah.
So, for almost 12 years, I worked in the credit union sector as an account executive in Alberta and Saskatchewan, traveling 6 days a week, going to different credit unions, meeting with lenders, teaching them how to sell insurance coverages on loans, and helping set up banking systems. That's what I did. 6 days a week. I was on the road 6 days a week. Immense hours in cars, driving 12, 14 hours sometimes to get to my locations, all seasons, winter, summer, whatever. A coworker who did corporate training for us was on the road with me. And she had said, her name is Miranda O. That's her pen name.
Oh,
I probably
yeah.
interviewed her. And she said that she wrote a little book. And prior to me doing this, I worked for Chapters Indigo in a special events standpoint, and they're the largest bookstore chain in Canada. So I told Miranda, let me look at your book. Let me help you get the word out about it. Well, within a month of a tour, we did 8 book signings in the span of 2 weeks. She went back to Winnipeg where she lives. I booked her another 4 book signings, and she sold a lot of books and she got some attention. And so when that happened, word got out, and all the writers I used to work with when I was at Indigo started calling me. Hey, Mickey, can you do this? Hey, Mickey, can you do that? So I started a little company called Creative Edge. My daughter, who's autistic, helped pick out the logo, which is a blue and white puzzle piece connected together. And we started that, and that was in March of 2015. By August of that same year, I had signed probably about 36 authors. And that was in the span of like 5 months.
Wow.
In 2020, in September, the company I worked for released me. They released 36 people as a result of a merger. I was one of them. So I had a decision to make. Do I keep doing this part-time and getting up at 4 a.m. and working till midnight and doing both jobs? Or do I go full-time and see what happens? Well, I decided to go full-time. And I went from probably 36 to 38 authors in September of 2020 to over 80 by November of that same year. We're now at over 100 authors worldwide. I'm the sole publicist for 6 small press publishers. We have New York Times bestsellers. We have USA Today bestsellers. One of my musicians was just nominated for a Grammy Award. So this is what's happened, and this is how we got started. And the reason I'm going on about this, and I know it's a long answer, is you can build something small, and if you have passion and approach for it, it can manifest into something big as long as you're really, really passionate about what you're doing.
That makes so much sense. That's actually a really, really cool story. I love. I mean, maybe it's just because I'm used to hearing the author stories where it's much more internally focused, right? And the author is creating something from inside rather than creating connections between other people. But that's so I find that your story may be a little more fascinating to hear because it's so different from what a lot of authors have to say.
I didn't know what I was doing, Tim. Honestly, when I started, I had no idea. I didn't know how to write a press release. I didn't have media connections. I didn't know how to book people for podcasts, radio, nothing. I knew nothing.
Wow.
And
so, yeah.
Go ahead, ask.
I'm just kind of curious because I remember how you first approached me. I think it was on Twitter because it was on a direct message on Twitter where where you asked, because I was doing a different podcast, right? I was doing of Mooks and Monsters, and you said something about, I forget the exact phrasing, right? I'm not going to quote you here. I don't even go on Twitter anymore. But the general approach was, it seems like you've got a good voice, and you talked. Would you like to talk to authors? Would you like to do another show where you talk to authors? So you actually suggested I start this show, which is really, really cool. And like I said, I really appreciate it because it has led to a lot of opportunities for me, and it made me more outgoing, honestly, than I have been, right? Because it's a lot like my experience with role playing games, actually, where like D&D, in D&D. As a kid, I was like, well, now I get to meet people, and there's a structure here to know them, to get to know people.
Yeah,
and that's something I think is very true in a lot of of tabletop games, especially because you play them in person,
for sure.
So there's a social element, and I really did. And in the same way, I get to do that over the computer. Right? I get to meet people digitally, and I've made some good friends the podcast, some of your clients, right? At the time, I mean, Joshua Pandalaresco, I'm not sure if he's actually one of your clients, but
No, but he's a media affiliate.
I lose track, right, of who's exactly what, because there's so many.
Yeah.
But Josh was great.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. It does change. And Terry Shepard has been a great link, and there's been a lot of other ones. I cannot actually remember all the names. I'm not gonna. If I forgot you, well, that's purely because there are so many of you. It's been wonderful. It's not. I just got the names of the people that I remember Mickey linking me up with that I just never would have known about otherwise, right? I never would have met these people otherwise, and it's really, really cool. Yeah,
it's a very small community in a big world. The book world is a very small community that's global in scope, and a lot of the individuals will talk to each other because it's such a tight-knit, strong community. And that's what we've tried to build with Creative Edge, right? We try to build a community of writers. Everybody that we sign has to have a certain DNA. Everybody we sign has to have a vision of what they want to do. Everybody we sign has to fit with the other people that we work with. Otherwise, it doesn't work, right? So that's what we've tried to build.
Yeah, and I think you've done a stellar job, honestly, which, especially when you say you didn't know how to do any of it, 10 years ago.
Nothing.
That's incredible. That's such a, I mean, granted, it's amazing what you can learn in 1 year, but you really put your nose to the grindstone there, sir. Yes.
Well, it's funny. I live in rural Alberta, Canada, and I've had places like the New York Post call me, or producers at Fox News call me, and all these major outlets call me and say, well, we want to send your stuff. Can we send stuff to your New York office, or are you in Toronto, or are you in, a major city like that? And I'm not.
Yeah, it's kind of a dream, actually. Yeah,
I'm in rural Alberta. Like, I live in Bloodminster, which is a small city in Alberta, which is the border between Alberta and Saskatchewan. But we're not a major center. And everyone thinks I'm working a major center because of who I'm talking to and stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, that's dream behavior. I mean, it's so cool that you didn't have to move to a new place, or maybe you did move, but you didn't, move to New York to do this job, right? You didn't move to a huge city or LA or any of those places. You didn't need to do that in person. I wonder if that's, and this is just musing probably, because I kind of doubt the answer, but if you do, chime in. I wonder if that's a symptom of the internet age. It has to be, at least partially, right?
Oh, of course it is.
Yeah, connectivity is so much easier. Yeah, it makes it so much more simple. You could do some of that over the phone, but not all of it, right?
Yeah, and honestly, Tim, I mean, down the road, my daughter's about to graduate high school, so we're going to look at that aspect. But once my daughter is fully functioning as to what she's going to do, I'm likely going to look at moving to a major center, because there's so many other relationships I could build by being within that.
Yeah, proximity does add a lot. That's true. It's just the possibilities of the internet add so much to people who aren't able to do that, which is fantastic.
100%. I couldn't do what I do without the internet. I would be lost.
Yeah, I mean, like if I was living in Minneapolis, I'd have a lot more opportunities. But living here in the little town I live in, just an hour south of Minneapolis, is way more comfortable, right? It's way easier. There's a lot less expenses. And, I can actually have space, and there's not cars going around every hour of the day. That's what it seems like every time I've spent the night in Minneapolis. It's been ridiculous. It's so loud up there.
Oh, I can only imagine.
And it's not even that big of a city, right? It's a city. The Twin Cities in Minnesota are, they're moderately large, but they still seem impossibly big and noisy to me.
I get it.
I'm a town guy, a little town guy.
No, I get it. Absolutely.
But it's been, like I said, it's been a great journey, and this podcast, it's been an awesome part of my life for a good chunk of time. I've really enjoyed it, and even when I've had to kind of drag myself through, drag myself around to get up for an interview or stay up for an interview, because frankly, sometimes the interviews are, scheduled at times that are odd for me, or frankly, my sleep schedule is bizarre.
I understand,
and but it's worth it, right? It's worth the hanging in there and sticking with the weekly production. And I really do appreciate all the work you've done to help me keep doing it. So
Well,
enough of
we'll keep
that.
going.
Enough of the
We'll keep
Mutual
going.
Admiration Society, because yeah, exactly. We are keeping going, probably, at least maybe not immediately, right?
No.
This podcast, one podcast ends and another begins. So I'm looking to start another podcast. I'm right now, the kind of tentative title is The Grimdark Heart, because I recently had one of my books described as Grimdark with Heart.
Well, there you go.
That's simple in a review. I'm like, okay, that
Perfect.
sounds like what I want to do. I like my dark fantasy, and in fact, I grew up enjoying grimdark fiction and both science fiction and fantasy. Right, Warhammer 40,000 was kind of my go-to for that, which is of course where the phrase grimdark comes from. Right, it's most people in the world, even those who know the genre, don't think about that or know that. But I grew up with Warhammer as one of my big influences, and of course that and Warhammer Fantasy especially goes back straight to Michael Moorcock with a lot of the influences that exist in that game, and Elric especially, the Elric saga, which I really like. I've talked about on this show before, which is just a fantastic series that influenced everyone from Sapkowski and the Witcher series to to the guys who created Warhammer, to I don't know. I mean, I can think of others. There's a ton of them. There's a ton of knockoffs of Elric throughout the world, right? I mean, but anyway, my point is, I'm excited to be starting a podcast that's a little more focused than this one, but otherwise, it might end up being kind of similar, at least some of the times. I'll still be your host. I'll still be welcoming people to the show. I'll have guests on at least some of the time, and I really want to focus on my journey to write more dark fiction that is nonetheless charming and has a good strong kind of central core of emotions to it.
Love it, Tim. It's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
I like to improvise, so I'm glad that worked out well.
For sure. No, for sure.
Yeah, I never do this show with the script anymore, so.
Perfect. What else do you want to know?
Let me see. Honestly, your background is fascinating enough and long enough that I feel like we don't have a lot more time, but we have plenty of time. This is the last episode. I'm not going to kick you out the door just yet.
No,
because then we're turning off the lights in here. No, I'm just kidding. The studio is basically going to be the same. It doesn't really matter where I end up recording from anyway at this point. So, yeah. So as far as this goes, I guess your clients have been great. We've been over that, and I really did enjoy. I mean, do you have any preferences? Obviously, you were a very busy man, especially when you had both jobs, right? You're still a busy guy, sure.
Not anymore, but yeah.
Yeah, but back then you were. But are you a big consumer of any particular kinds of media? I know you like comics books, right? Graphic novels, that kind of thing. Yes, you did. I've seen you post that.
Well, I'm a big proponent of comic books, but lately I've actually been reading more books.
Okay.
Because I've been finding that I retain more information. I'm more refreshed when I'm reading books. My vocabulary is getting better. And this is going to sound weird, maybe, but I think I'm a better publicist when I start reading more books in the literary aspects, because although I don't read all of my clients' books, that's part of my stance.
You have too many clients for that. Come on.
Well, it's not even just that, but it's I just discovered the world of books, and I think it's wonderful.
Oh, that's great. It's also interesting that you've done it relatively recently. I mean, that's cool.
Yeah, actually.
It's funny because you should say that, because that you feel like you're a better publicist when you're reading, and you're reading, I assume, fiction, but who knows, right? Any kind of prose,
usually
right?
Fiction, yeah.
Yeah. But when you're reading that, because I've noticed that with myself, I'm obviously as an author, but when I read something that really influences me, I can kind of hear my thoughts in that style, right? I can
exactly.
hear it. And it's really wonderful. It's such a great sensation, right? It puts me in this headspace because the book teaches you how to read it, right? That's one of the key things about a novel.
100%.
And that's one of the reasons, go on.
What? No, I was just going to say 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly. So one of the things that I found so interesting is that, a few years ago now, it was one of my hobby horses, and I'll bring it up one last time. It was the Game of Thrones TV show ending, and also how Game of Thrones was too brutal for me as a book but I didn't mind watching the TV show so much that I saw all but one episode of it.
Okay.
The last one. The last one. I skipped the last one. Because I was tired, because I thought the show was so bad at that point. I'm like, I'm not giving you the satisfaction TV show. But as if it mattered. But I thought the fact that they already blew the ending in like the third episode of the final season is like, okay, well, that's it.
Yeah, I get it.
It's like there's no chance of this recovering.
No, for sure.
But that's because the show, the books, which I read at the beginning of the first book, and the show starts basically the same way with the snow monster, the zombies in the snow.
Mm-hmm.
Is like, that is to me the obvious cue as to what conflict needs to end last, right? Because it's bookend is, and literally in the case of the novels, which may never see the ending, but who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Fingers crossed for all those people who still wait.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But I really think that's kind of the most basic way of, a structure will tell you how to interpret the story, how the story should go when writing fiction. But then every time you read a book, it's like, this is the kind of book this is. It's going to get into it. And that's one of the reasons I think the show fell off so fast for me after like season 3 or 4. Because I was like, oh, there's been another heroic rescue. That didn't feel exceptional. It felt like that's just what's going to happen now. That doesn't feel like the original show, right? That's not George R.R. Martin, how he wrote his books the first like 3 volumes. So usually when something bad's going to happen, it's just going to happen, right? It's not that somebody's going to pop out and rescue him every time, which is what it felt like later on. Mm-hmm. And that to me was one of the biggest like red flags, I guess, or like signs that the show is no longer functional. And there's so much there. It's like because the people who were adapting it apparently did not get that, right? They did not understand that you can't do the traditional fantasy writing tricks when your show is that dark, that kind of thing.
The one thing I will say about what I've been looking at and observing about reading, indies get a bad rap.
Yes.
Self-published authors get a bad rap with the media, with other traditional authors, with the mindset that if the book is self-published, it's a bad book. I've been reading a lot of indies lately, actually. And I've been comparing them to some of the traditional published authors that I know. And the one thing I will truly say is if the indie has done their craft properly and got it professionally edited and they've had a decent book cover, and I've said this before in other podcasts, but I want to say it here again. Those indies who invest time and money and take their craft seriously deserve to be on the same stage as a New York Times bestseller, as a USA Today bestseller, as an author published by Penguin, HarperCollins, Hachette, Simon & Schuster. They all deserve to be on that same stage as those individuals. And
I really appreciate that. Go on.
It's a travesty that they're not, actually.
Yeah, that's a really powerful statement. I'm glad to hear you say something like that. Obviously, fair number of your clients are also independent authors, which is great.
They are. It's half and half, to be honest.
But okay, half and half. Okay, I didn't know what the ratio was, so that's good.
Yeah, it's usually about half and half.
Okay, I mean, and obviously, I publish my books independently, so again, it's like
right.
It's really good to hear that because I know I've heard people say, obviously I've seen all the horror stories about people like this independent book didn't do it, this is like so bad, or even the best independent book is almost indistinguishable from a traditional book in that way,
100%,
and in all the ways that matter, right? And I find, I don't think I'm making the best books just yet, but I'm working on it.
We all are, like everyone is. Yeah. It's always a craft.
I'm on a journey, right? Everyone's on a journey. You're not done till you're done. It's not that.
Who's not on a journey?
Right, exactly. The people.
We're all on journeys.
Yeah, exactly.
Like so, it never ends. The journey should never end.
Yeah. Well, unless it's like the Wheel of Time or something. No.
Wow. But even
no, then, I'm sorry. Just series to the end, but that's stories for you.
But that's not how people you'll live still be writing more books, right? So
that's true. That's true.
The journey never ends, or it shouldn't.
Yeah, I think that's a good note to go out on, Mickey.
Sure. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, and it's almost perfect timing. So, Mickey of Creative Edge, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me in the support team. You're wonderful.
Oh, right back at you, sir. Thank you so much. And as for this podcast, Well, I don't know where you'll be finding it up from now on, but look for the Grim Dark Heart coming out sometime this summer. We'll start launching. I'll probably post the first episode here in this feed because the feed isn't going anywhere. Let me be clear about that. It'll be here for at least as long as I keep paying for Libsyn to host it. So that'll be a while. Now, years at least. Everyone who still listens to old episodes of Mooks and Monsters can attest to that. Thanks for listening, everybody. And I will talk to you again on a different show. Till then, take care of yourselves, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.